Welcome back to the deep dive.
Oh,
So today we're taking something that seems, completely routine, right?
utterly routine.
The simple, humble act of offering someone a beverage. And we're realizing it might actually be one of the most complex symbolic languages on Earth.
That's it, exactly.
We often think of serving tea or coffee as just a polite thing to do. It's about warmth, it's about welcome.
Yeah.
But our sources suggest that in some cultures, this ritual carries what they call complete symbols.
And that's absolutely the core truth we're digging into today. We're going to zero in on a very specific tradition. We're talking about the Moroccan tea ritual known as al-Diafa al-Maghribia.
Moroccan hospitality.
Moroccan hospitality.
Yeah.
And to give you a quick parallel, if Western hospitality is maybe a firm handshake and a nice chat, al-Diafa al-Maghribia is an intricately choreographed dance.
A dance, I like that.
It's a fundamental cultural rite. It's all designed to express this profound sense of generosity and a truly deep welcome.
And our mission for this deep dive is to decode that dance. It's the sheer weight of the tradition and the incredible structure of this service that I find so fascinating. We need to unpack the symbolism, especially focusing on why the tea has to be presented 3 separate times.
3 times, yeah.
And what specific, non-negotiable message each of those cups signifies to the guest. It sounds less like serving a drink and more like a structured piece of high-stakes communication.
That's exactly what it is. It's codified, it's formal, and it is deeply, deeply meaningful.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. Let's establish the foundation. Why is the preparation and presentation of tea in Morocco so unique that our sources call it a symbolic ancient tradition? What makes it go so far beyond just, simple refreshment?
It's all in the conduct. It is codified as a ceremonial rite or tax, and its entire purpose is to communicate core cultural values.
Okay.
The sources are crystal clear on this. The 2 main values this ritual exists to express are generosity, which is known as karam, and a warm welcome tarhib.
So it's an active demonstration.
It's an active demonstration of these virtues. The host doesn't just, tell someone else to do it. They sit down, they engage in this whole lengthy process of blending the green tea, the fresh mint, the sugar. The entire performance of preparing it is part of the welcoming ritual.
So it proves the host's dedication to that idea of karam.
Yes, exactly.
The effort itself is the first layer of the message. You're showing the guest you value them by investing your time, your skill. But here's the thing that really makes it a ritual for me. That mandatory repetition.
Yes.
The tea is traditionally presented 3 separate times. Now, if the goal is simply to prove karam and offer refreshment, 1 perfectly brewed, delicious glass should be enough, right?
You'd think so.
Why is a single cup just insufficient?
Because if the whole act is a language, then a single cup is just a sound. It's not a complete thought.
Right.
The 3 servings are mandatory because they form a narrative, a kind of philosophical progression that has to be completed to deliver the full message. You can't just stop the sentence halfway through.
That makes me wonder, though, is there a specific reason for that sequence? If the ultimate goal is peace, which is often what we want from hospitality, why not just jump straight to the calmest feeling first? Why this necessary 3-stage progression?
And that's the heart of it. You cannot skip the steps because the 3 cups correspond to these fundamental human experiences that build on one another. The host, through the tea, is literally guiding the guest on a philosophical journey.
A journey. Okay, cool. So let's walk through it. What's the first step?
The first serving, that initial offering, it's at the foundation. It represents life.
Life.
Just the acknowledgement of existence. By offering that first cup, the host recognizes the simple, sacred fact that you, the guest, are present. You are in their space, you're alive, and you are acknowledged.
So that first pour just anchors you in reality. Your very existence is being noted and validated. But that's a pretty profound meaning for a simple glass of mint tea. So what happens next? What's the second stage?
The second cup builds on that. Once existence life is established, you can move to connection. The second cup represents love. Oh.
And this is the critical transition. This is where hospitality moves past just obligation or politeness and toward genuine warmth and shared humanity.
So it signifies friendship.
A bond. Exactly. The bond being forged or celebrated between the people sharing the ritual. It represents the value of connection within that established foundation of just being.
So you're communicating a deepening of the relationship. You go from recognizing the person is just there to actively embracing them. And only after life and love are established do we finally get to the third cup, the final mandatory serving, which
This is
represents
serenity or
it's
sakina.
sakina.
And sakina is a powerful concept. It's not just relaxation, it's a deep, settled calmness, a profound internal peace. And the philosophical genius here is that you can't offer that full gift of peace until the previous steps are completed.
So the message is,
The message is, I acknowledge your life, I offer you my love, and only now that we have this established relationship, this foundation, can I offer you serenity.
it's the destination of the journey. It is. It's the point where the guest should feel completely at ease, settled, and free from any external anxieties, all within the host's protection.
So let me ask you this. If I, as the guest, were to refuse that third cup, let's say I'm in a rush, what's the unspoken implication of that? Is the host just a bit disappointed, or have I actually broken the ritual?
In the context of Al Diafa Al Maghribia, refusing the third cup is refusing that completed gesture of peace.
Wow.
It suggests the guest may not have fully accepted the host's complete narrative of welcome. The host hasn't successfully completed the ritual of wishing lasting internal peace upon their guest.
That's extraordinary. It means the obligation is on both parties. The host has to offer the three gifts, and the guest really has to accept them for the communication to be whole.
Exactly. And the emphasis on the full sequence just underscored how serious the commitment is. Stopping after one cup means you've only acknowledged existence. Stopping after two means you've offered a connection, but you haven't delivered that ultimate gift of peace. Only by serving and sharing that third cup is the complete ritual delivered.
It changes everything about how you look at that glass of tea. It's not just about the flavor anymore. It's about the life statement you're making. But the ritual isn't only about the number of cups, is it? It's also, I found, obsessively focused on how the tea is physically delivered.
Yes, the execution matters immensely.
So if the message is this profound life, love, serenity, the execution has to match. This is where the physical mastery comes in. The sources all note that the tea must be poured from a high distance. For someone new to this, that just sounds unnecessarily difficult. Why is the elevation of the pour, the sheer vertical distance, so vital to this ritual?
It's the bridge. It's the bridge that connects the philosophical demands of Karam to the practical demands of skill. If you commit to being a generous host, you must also commit to flawless execution.
So there's a practical reason for the height.
There is, and it's not a mystery. It's physics. The sources are absolutely clear. The high pour is done specifically to create foam, or froth. They call it ragua.
Ragua.
And this aeration is achieved simply by the stream of tea dropping through the air into the glass.
So the foam, the ragua, is the visual cue. You can look at the glass and immediately tell if the pour was successful or not.
Yeah.
But what does the foam itself mean? Is it just about good texture, or does it carry that same symbolic weight as the three cups?
Oh, it's highly symbolic. Crucially, its presence is defined as a demonstration of two key attributes from the hadith, and they tie directly back to that concept of generosity, of Karam.
Okay, what are they?
First, the visual confirmation of the foam signals respect. It shows the guest that the host cared enough about the hospitality, about Al Diafa Al Maghribia, to perform the rite correctly following the ancient rules.
And what's the second attribute?
The second is mastery skill. It's known as itqan.
Ikon.
Think about it. To pour boiling hot tea from a significant height without spilling a single drop and consistently generating that perfect layer of foam, it takes a lot of practice. It takes steady hands and it takes focus.
Right.
Ikwan is the visual proof that the host isn't just going through the motions, they're performing the ritual with perfection. The difficulty level proves the commitment. If it were easy, it wouldn't be a valuable demonstration of effort or respect.
That link, the link between high difficulty and high respect, that is fascinating. Is there a tension there, though? I mean,
Yeah.
does the need to perform this perfect pour add stress for the host? Or is the expectation of mastery so ingrained that it just becomes part of the hospitality itself?
It's definitely the latter. That standard is just ingrained. The host wants to demonstrate their itqan because the mastery of the technique is the physical manifestation of their karam.
I see.
If you fail to generate the froth, or if you spill, you haven't just made a mess. You have visually failed to prove your dedication to the ritual of hospitality.
It makes complete sense. If you are communicating this profound narrative of life, love, and serenity, you have to deliver that narrative flawlessly. It truly is a blend of practical skill and deep symbolism, a poorly poured cup that lacks the ragua. Well, It lacks the full confirmation of the server's respect and mastery.
Exactly. The entire ritual is a continuous performance. Not only does the host give you three philosophical gifts, but they prove their generosity and welcome by demonstrating the mastery, the itkan, required to serve those gifts perfectly. The glass of tea becomes this powerful, living document of respect and tradition.
This has given us such a clear picture of the ritual. The complete philosophical message, life, love, and serenity delivered sequentially, and the flawless execution of the high pour showing Ipkan. What's so fascinating here is that the beverage truly is transformed. It becomes a language, not just a drink.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights how much intention we sometimes lose in our own modern daily routines. The complexity of this ritual, the three cups, the sequence, the high pour, it ensures that the meaning of hospitality is never forgotten or minimized.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this as you move through your day? Maybe next time you prepare or accept a simple beverage, you can consider the hidden codes and traditions that might be embedded in that simple gesture, even in your own culture.
Yeah.
It reminds us that every routine we perform, especially those we share with other people, has the potential to carry far more weight than we usually attribute to it. Maybe your own morning coffee ritual or the way your family prepares dinner has an unspoken symbolic sequence that you haven't quite articulated yet.
Absolutely. And if a daily staple like tea can carry the weight of an entire philosophical journey, from acknowledging life through forging love, all the way to a settled serenity, and it's all packaged into one short, flawlessly executed presentation,
Right.
then think about the powerful, overlooked messages that are already woven into the fabric of your own daily rituals.
So the question we leave you with is this. What routines are you performing every day that are actually carrying secret symbolic meanings you haven't even acknowledged yet? We encourage you to start looking for your own hidden codes of connection and peace. That's what we'll leave you with today.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.